the name of our loving and ever-present God. Amen. What do you suppose it means to be transfigured? I'll take your answers off air.
Changed into something.
Changed into something else. Changed.
Your true self brought forward.
Your true self brought forward. Or a significant piece of who you are down deep inside brought forward.
Enlightened.
Light.
Enlightened. Enlightened.
Enlightened. To be transformed, to be enlightened. By the way, how did these folks know that was Moses and Elijah? Just curious. Did they read the newspaper accounts and there were photographs that morning? Beware, they Googled. Who said that? Just a minute, Jesus. That's Moses. Yep, Elijah. Very good. Very good. What is Luke trying to tell us at this particular time with these two persons that arrive on this mountain? By the way, significance of mountains. Tell me about that. What is the significance of mountains in this period of time? Well, think about Moses in the Old Testament reading.
That's where God was supposed to be.
God is closer. God is on the mountaintops. God is closer to you. And it's interesting that until Moses' time, with few exceptions, if you saw the face of God, you died. Because it was just too overwhelming to see the face of God and to live. Very challenging in that regard. So Moses lived, and he had this wonderful glow about him. So much so that the Renaissance painters painted the glow sparkling out of him. You remember these paintings, you all have seen these in your history or in your art studies or whatever. Some of them actually have Moses with horns on his head, and that's from a misinterpretation of the Latin, which said that there were horns of light or streams of light coming out of his head, and some people thought, oh, those were horns on his head, which really mess up your views of Moses. And it kind of confuses that with your idea of who the devil might be. So Jesus is on the mountain, and he has the three witnesses. The three witnesses are Peter, James, and John. Do we know where they went with Jesus again by themselves? You remember that story back earlier where Peter, James, and John went with Jesus to heal that little girl. So these three individuals, I believe, in Luke's idea and Luke's thinking, Luke's theology, are prime witnesses to what's going on. What's going on. And so there is a transfiguration which takes place, and Jesus becomes, well, he gets a glow about him, and his clothing is as white as snow, and there he stands with Moses and with Elijah. What is Luke trying to tell us? This event, you see, takes place just before Jesus turns his face from, in this gospel, this is just before Jesus turns his face and heads down to Jerusalem to fulfill his destiny. To fulfill his destiny. I wonder about transfigurations and things that happen. I wonder about that. I wonder how that works for those of us who are not the Messiah. I wonder where that comes from, how it affects us. Suppose, for instance, something wonderful happens to you. Something wonderful happens to you, and it changes you. And people will look at you and go, wow, Dave, you've got a glow about you today, man. Something's happened. Tell us about it. That's on the one side. And then there's another side where something happens to you, or something happens to a person that you love, and then that changes you so desperately and so radically that that also reveals itself. People will go, "What's wrong with you? What's up with you? What's happened?" I know of a recent circumstance actually where people are, people get hurt in this world, and somebody will see that individual and they'll go, "Wow." And then the compassion starts. So transfiguration has an upside and it has a downside. Transfiguration is something that happens to us in our lives. Things that we see, things that happen, things that do, things that change us. And I think that when we have an expression like transfiguration, we're not supposed to just think that it's something that, it changes my opinion about what I should wear. Or what's happened to me has changed my opinion about a particular way of doing something. Transfiguration is deep and permanent and powerful, and it changes us forever. Jesus was transfigured. And Peter, we go with Peter and then we put the southern expression, "bless his heart," after that. Peter wants to do something. Peter looks at all this and he wants to do something. And I've heard people go, "Peter, bless his heart. He just feels like he has to do something because he just doesn't get it." Well, maybe he does get it. Maybe he sees in this the context of something really great and really wonderful, and he wants to mark it somehow. He wants to say that this is reminiscent of the history of the people that we come from, when they journeyed from Egypt out of the land of bondage into a new place, into a healthy place, into a place of safety. A land flowing with milk and honey. A land that we remember, that journey that we remember because we build booths to celebrate the tabernacles that we built on our journey, that supported us on our journey, that reminded us constantly of the power and presence of God in us. So maybe Peter had the right idea after all. Something is changed in Jesus. And whatever it is that changes Jesus, it changes the nature of where he was and where he is going. In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with a glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. So how does that reflect on us, and what does it mean to us and about us and for us? What are we to do? Well, Transfiguration Sunday is the Sunday before Lent, when we, I believe, are called to examine and look into ourselves, at our faith, and to permit God to enter into us and transfigure us. I think that the prime focus of our Lenten journey is to see what it is that matters to us. What it is that shapes our faith, that changes the color of who we are and how we believe. I think that as we enter into this particular Lent, it is no irony that we're also entering into the time when the public debate is so loud and raucous, and when people are fearful or joyful or whatever people are with regards to the political climate. Things are changing, my brothers and sisters, in the world and in us. We are not unaffected by what happens outside. But there is something really wonderful and beautiful about this thing, transfiguration. Because not only are we affected by what happens outside, but my brothers and sisters, we can affect what happens outside. We are not without power. And here is an example of the Holy Spirit entering into this man Jesus, giving Jesus what remaining power he needs to be the person that we all need to listen to. Remember what that voice said out of that cloud? The Holy Spirit says to these witnesses, "Here is my Son, my chosen one. Listen to him." How does this world listen to Jesus nowadays? Well, I tell people that sometimes I hear the espousing of a Christian faith outside of this building that I don't even recognize. And some of you may not also. Some of you may not recognize the Christian faith I espouse. But that's a part of our journey for us to understand that and to realize that what has transfigured us, what we profess, what the Holy Spirit enters into us and gives to us, is meant to change us. And then we are meant to go outside of this building and change the world. It is no less than that. And when we sit together in this congregation, we are meant to rely on each other. Even if we radically disagree about things. Even if we find that things hurt us among us. We are still to rely on each other. And the change begins here, in this place, with each other. I invite you to let the Holy Spirit in. To acknowledge the power and presence of a living and present God, a strong God, an active God, that we listen to every single time we say to each other, "I love you, and I want you to know that I love you. I want you to know that when you fall down, I will lift you up. And I want you to know that when I fall down, I want you to help me get up." In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with a glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me, as he died to make men holy. Let us die to make men. There's one way, but there are others. There are others. Let the light of your glory shine in your faces, and let it change the world, my brothers and sisters.